What's up, everyone? Welcome back to a new video. If you're new here, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you do not miss any new videos. And while you're at it, turn on the bell so you get notified of every video we post. We have quite a bit to talk about. As you can see on the screen, we are going to be talking about, believe it or not, North Carolina, which is going to be one of the most competitive states this year, coming down to both the House races, the gubernatorial election, and then the other down-ballot races, such as the Attorney General. The biggest and most competitive seats that Democrats, along with Republicans, are going to put the most amount of effort into this state, because this is a state that really could go either way when it comes down to the very last vote. So let's get into it. Robinson won the gubernatorial primary by 30 points. When you combine Falwell and Graham combined. So Mark Robinson won by 30, and he won with 65% of the vote. I'm rounding it up to 65%. He will now go on to the general election with Trump's endorsement to face off against the state's Attorney General, Josh Stein. When Ted Budd won his primary, the entire party coalesced around Ted Budd at the end of the day and came home and voted for Ted Budd. I'm assuming that this is the same thing that's going to happen with Mark Robinson, that he's won the primary and everybody's going to start to coalesce around him, thus giving him a win over Josh Stein. Because as you can tell, the Democrat base really just did not show up in very big numbers to vote. And you can also see, if we go to the state results, Joe Biden and the Democrat primary for the presidential side did not do very well. 694,000 votes, but still, it's around a very similar margin to the gubernatorial election, with the gubernatorial election getting 684,000 votes combined in total. So the Democrats had very poor turnout, while Republicans had really high turnout in their election with 1,023 or 1,023,000 votes. Plus, when it comes down to this, we need to remember that the North Carolina Republicans are very good, and they know how to get the job done and win, even when crunch time comes and they get outraised like 7-1 or something crazy ridiculous like that. However, with Robinson being the lieutenant governor of the state of North Carolina, he will go on with name recognition to win the governor's election later this year, considering he does win. He's favored to win. The polling shows that he is favored to win, but the polls right now have a bunch of undecideds. But the latest poll, it was Stein 40, Robinson 43. I'll put a screenshot on the screen so you all know. But the biggest issue that comes down in North Carolina is North Carolina, as we know, and they've done previously, they split their tickets, which could be an issue. In the 2020 gubernatorial election, Trump took the state by 1.5, and then Cooper ended up winning by 4. Goes to show that the ticket splitting is real, and it happens in North Carolina in higher numbers than the rest of the country. However, despite that issue, Mark Robinson is the most electable out of the 3 candidates that were in the Republican primary. As a matter of fact, Josh Stein was beating Bill Graham and Falwell in every single poll that were released with them in the mix. However, next up, as I mentioned in the last video, the gubernatorial election, however, did go to a runoff for the Republican side. Paul Witherman and Jim O'Neill. Jim O'Neill was the Republican nominee for the Attorney General slot back in 2020, and he almost took out Josh Stein as the state's Attorney General, but he was a no-namer. He was essentially a no-namer, and he got 49 point something of the vote. It was within a point. However, I haven't done any research on this race much yet, but from what I've heard, Witherman is the more conservative candidate. I'll have to do more research on this race because I really don't know much about this, but either one of them would probably do just fine as lieutenant governor. But in reality, it would make who would be a good governor in the event that Robinson had to step away. So that being said, the Attorney General race, no real big surprise here. Dan Bishop ran uncontested, and Jeff Jackson getting 55% of the vote. Again, it shows that Democrats are not unified behind one candidate in the Attorney General. Very divisive primary. Spent a lot of money there. And Jeff Jackson got 55% of the vote. And had he done worse, it would have shown that the party was more divided among the candidates. But Dan Bishop will now face off with Jeff Jackson, and unlike the Jim O'Neill situation in 2020, Dan Bishop's got name recognition for being a congressman, because the state Democratic base just does not seem to like Jackson. If you're voting like 45% in combo for the other candidates, then it shows you're not really unified behind the one candidate, because most Democrat primaries end up with like 75% to 80% of the vote with the winning candidate. If Bishop ran in the 2020 Attorney General election, he would have won without any problem, because he's been recognized before and has good name recognition. When it comes down to the House races, there's a couple races worth talking about. The 6th District, McDowell got the Trump endorsement against all of these candidates, and him and Mark Walker are advancing to a runoff. I'm hoping that McDowell pulls it off and wins. But with that being said, there were some really close races in the House. I think the closest one was Mark Harris. Mark Harris is going to join the Freedom Caucus. Believe it or not, this is Dan Bishop's current district. This is Dan Bishop's district. And this was actually the original candidate that there was fraud or something claimed. I don't know exactly what happened here a few years ago, but Mark Harris is going to go out there and he's going to take down whoever the Democrat is running in this district. So yeah, that's basically that. And I also wanted to touch on the 1st District, because 1st District, Larry Buckholt came out and defeated Sandy Smith in the election by about 7 points. It was a 7-point defeat for Sandy Smith. And Sandy Smith, I like her. She's a good candidate. However, I do believe her fundraising is great. She also has a bunch of cash on hand. Larry Buckholt, she's got a couple skeletons in her closet, and I'm not a real big fan of her. But I think that she's the nominee, and this is a super red trending district. She will be able to go out there, and she'll be able to win. It all comes down to if Trump takes the district at the end of the day, which I'm almost certain that he will, because Bud won the district by about 4 points in 2022. And the Republican base is going to turn out in higher numbers because this is a presidential year. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. With that being said, I will see you in the next video, second video coming later tonight. And have a great rest of your day.